Hi, welcome to EPCC Talks. My name is Dr. Archuleta Lucero. This is Professor Claudia Chacon-Haley. We are both here very excited today to talk to two of my students this semester, Jasmine Marquez and Eduardo Silva. We're talking to them about their educational journeys. We're interested in their K through 12 experience. We're interested in how they got to EPCC. A lot of our conversation will center around their parents, their grandparents, their caretakers, and what they deemed in terms of education. I'll ask them at the end about what their predictions are as it relates to their own educational journey, and we have just some wonderful conversations today. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Always grateful to the audience. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today at EPCC Talks. We have a great conversation ahead of us. And let me go ahead and introduce our guests today. We have Eduardo Silva, we call Eddie, and Jasmine Marquez, two of my students in federal government. I really thought in every way they were exceptional just because of, we have some conversations in class ourselves, mostly on current events. And so it's an opportunity for all of us to engage. And each class has its own energy and its own dynamic. And so that's wonderful. But both of these students have really exceeded just in terms of those conversations, the thought processes, their logical consistency, the way they look at things. And so I'm excited just to hear from you today. And our goal and focus is really to talk a little bit about your educational journey. As always, I have Claudia Chacon at my side in terms of the co-host. So thank you for being here, both of you. Really, really grateful for your time. I know time is really valuable.
No, thank you so much for having us here. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's start. Let's jump in. Eduardo, let me ask you a little bit about your K through 12 journey. I'm always interested in the story. The story is huge for me. I love storytelling. That's the way in which I've learned. That's the way in which I think a lot of the times. I listen to podcasts that tell stories, human stories. So I want to hear a little bit about your K through 12 experience. And I say K through 12, that's a big range, right? Elementary school. But let's dive into elementary school, and then I'll work my way through high school. Tell me a little bit about your elementary school experience in terms of, I don't want to use very simplistic terms. Great, terrible. But just in terms of your own journey, what was it like for you in elementary school? As I think you went to school here, you told me.
Yes. So I went to Del Norte Heights, which is south of I-10 by Hunter. So my mom used to work early shifts, and I would have to walk over as a little kid to my school, or she would drop me off. And I mean, that's basically what I had to face in a way. She wasn't home in the mornings because she had to work.
Sure.
She was a single mother. And throughout the grades, I mean, I did pretty good up to like 4th or 5th grade. Mm-hmm. I started, as people say, slacking off. Mm-hmm. I was bullied a lot because of my weight. So there's that. But other than that, I never had any problems with school. I mean, I liked school. I just didn't like reading.
Yeah. You and I were talking a little bit the other day. We had this conversation about reading, right? And entryways into reading and so forth. What are some things that you think worked for you? Like, some I don't know, keys in the classroom that you really plugged into, and of course, the bullying would not be one of those. But what are some things that you focused in on that you connected with inside the classroom?
Well, I mean, with that whole bullying, it does build character. I'll tell you that. So it happens, and as long as you don't let it break you down, it's good. And what is it called? The reading. You're asking what books got me into reading?
Well, I'm asking more or less like, how did you connect? Like, I really loved hearing from my teacher, like, the knowledge that she had. I thought was, learning math, learning times tables. I mean, I just really focused in on a lot of my relationships with my teachers. But I don't know what it was for you. It maybe connection may have been different in another way. Maybe it was your peers. Maybe it was, something science that brought you in. I don't know what connected and worked for you in the classroom is what I was asking.
Well, to be honest, nothing that I can remember. It's all a blur when it comes to school, at least that early. Mm-hmm. Even middle school and high school is kind of a blur. And I didn't have a specific thing that I liked. I just went through the motions, autopilot kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it was mostly making friends, especially in elementary. I wasn't worried about the the grammar. I wasn't worried about math. Maybe I should have, but I wasn't, So, but all that, when it comes to work, it is a blur. I can't really recall much of that stuff.
And that happens a lot. I mean, it's just, I think back, going back to Denver and thinking about my own journey, and some of it, is very clear, and some of it's a little gray. So no, I understand that. Let me turn my attention to you, Jazz. In terms of your K through 12 experience, what are some things that stand out to you in terms of your time? And let's focus on elementary school, just as I asked Eddie.
When it came to elementary school, I had first gone to Isleta Elementary. However, educational-wise, it wasn't bad. I don't remember much. However, I have a story of we were drawing, or we had to color in some bears, and it had to be a brown bear with blue eyes, like specifically those colors, correct? And I was like, no, I want my bear to be purple. So I colored my bear purple, and next time the teacher called my mom, she's like, I think something's wrong with your daughter. She colored the bear purple instead of brown. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? It's like, what if it's a Care Bear? She's like, let her color it purple. That was probably the first experience I had there. I was like, why can't I just, they couldn't let my creativity loose. It had to be a specific, like how everything had to be organized. And I didn't really like that. My mom saw that I didn't really like that.
Yeah.
The bullying as well. In elementary, I did get bullied quite a lot there. And that's why my mom was like, oh, let's switch you schools. And then I went to Loma Vedre Elementary. That one was a bit better. I think I didn't have any problems with the teachers. However, I didn't do well in a lot of my classes. I wasn't, I think at one point I wasn't really AB honor roll at all. Like during elementary, no. However, what's the word? However, as I progressed, I did notice that science, math, all of that does come into play, and I realized how important it is. And it didn't take me until middle school that I realized that, that this is my life in the future. Like without it, I can't really succeed in ways that I want to.
Yeah. Well, and two, I think we, start doing well in a specific area, and then we like it a little bit more, and
Exactly.
it gets, it's just like this constant attraction. Let me ask you, and I know Claudia has some questions, but let me ask you, Eddie, a little bit about, I'm always interested in how people get to here, right? We're sitting here at a table. You're a brilliant student. Jasmine's exceptional in every way. But there's a story behind one, from point A to point B. In terms of education, and I'm saying the emphasis on education, I didn't have that growing up. But what was it like for you at home? Was education emphasized? Did your mom go to school? Did you have grandparents? Was there sort of a historical linear point A to point B? People went to school. And that's, was your path as well?
Well, my mom did go to school. She graduated in Juarez as, I believe, accounting or something like that. I'm not too sure. Then we got here, and eventually she started going to college for English, and then she started doing for the PTA program. So that's what got me into the whole nursing, And she, to this day, she's not like fluent in English, but she was passing with 90s. So I'm taking the class right now. So I get an 88, and it's like, the world's over for me, because I'm like, how am I speaking English fluently? And my mom was getting all these high grades. So that I do beat myself up when it comes to that. It was pushed a lot, education, because my mom always said, if you don't educate yourself, you basically can't do anything in life, which I learned to see that it's not true. Not everybody with an education is successful, and just not everybody that's successful went to school, so it just depends on the person. But going to school does help. I'll tell you that.
It does, but and two, let me say this. I wasn't a great student in college. I loved learning. I loved being in the classroom, but I didn't have a skill set for that. And your life took another path too. You went to the military, so you have a huge life experience. Then come back, and you almost have to switch gears mentally in your brain a little bit. This was my life here, and now this is another focus. So I think that too is something that we maybe don't talk about enough, right? There's 40 people in a classroom. Everybody has A's. Everybody should be doing this, but everybody's construct is very different. And so I think that has to be taken into account. I feel sometimes that nobody taught me how to study. I didn't know. Like, you take time, you do, I remember taking a class in how to do that because I didn't have it and nobody at home could help me. So I think that too, Eduardo, is part of your unique story, is that, you had a little bit of a diversion and then came back, but very serious. I teach you, so I know what it is. You're a very serious student. Jazz, who went to school? Grandma, grandpa, did mom, dad, did any caretaker go to school?
Right. As far as I know, my mom did. However, she was a single mom and she was taking care of me. And sometimes she would take me to here, actually, to EPCC. And I would wait for her outside and I would just sit down on the tables. And sometimes I would play in the restrooms. And when she came out, it was okay. It wasn't anything. But she did get her bachelor's degree in, I think, biology, and I can't remember something else. However, now she's doing really well. And she's also very harsh. She's like, oh, education, you have to go to school. You have to get this. You can't slack off, Jasmine. But at the same time, I didn't know how to study myself. Eventually, I was like, I have to sit down and eliminate all these distractions. If not, I get distracted very easily and I start messing around. But it was because of my mom that she did encourage me to go to school, because if she can do it and she had all these obstacles in her way and we were on food stamps and she was taking care of me and no support either from her father at the time, it was just her on her own. So I told myself, if she could do it and she was there to provide for me, and that was like her goal was for me, then when she's older, I want to be able to take care of her. So that's my goal in the future.
And so courageous. I mean, really, going to school, trying to figure it out, has a young child, trying to think about, doing multitasking. So good for her.
It
Good
really
for
is.
her. Yeah.
Well, I think that you both brought up several important points, right? First of all, that you're bullied. That builds character as a person that got bullied herself, right? That just it proves like endurance, and you that builds that inner
Resilience,
fighting,
sure.
exactly, resilience, that inner fight in you. And I love hearing the stories of your mothers, right? Matriarchs, which is very rare to hear, especially nowadays, especially how our society is thinking. Previous to us beginning the show, or the cast, both of you were mentioning how, as far as education wise, you took a different path and then you came to school, right? And the way I see it, that is in itself an accomplishment, because you figured something out, especially when you're at that crucial age where you're trying to figure many things out, and then you figured it out. I've had a lot of veteran students and family that are veteran, and they said the military really add the structure to me. Now, I didn't go that path because, my parents were like, no, pull the ear, like, you're not going that path. So I went through education. But I think it says a lot when a person decides, this is what I'm going to do in my life, in that age where you're trying to figure yourself, your emotions, what is going to be my future? What is my foundation as an adult?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially because, studies show that our hormones are up and down and we're trying to figure ourselves out. We're still not chemically there. Our cognizance is still not there, but both of you just figuring stuff out for yourself, that says a lot, especially for today's youth.
Yeah, in regards to that, because in middle school, I had gotten in trouble. I had got sent to an alternative school because of it. And what is it called? I was going, down that path of, not going to school. And because I wasn't doing well in any of my classes. And it took me a while, and it was because of my mother that it took me a while to realize that, yes, school is important. And it was when it came to high school, that's when I started to get my grades up. That's when I became an A student. My mom's like, you see, you're not stupid. You're just lazy, Jasmine. You just didn't want to do the work and put in the effort. She's like, but you can do it. And for that month that I was in that alternative school, I couldn't really, I was like, no, this is not where I belong, because I didn't really blend in. And I felt very uncomfortable there. And I told myself, I don't want to end up like this. in the future with people I don't get along with or with people that I can't have a normal conversation with. And that's when I realized, when I started my high school career, I was like, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on myself. It was a really big turning point. It was like an eye opener, and it helped me grasp reality. It took a while, but now it's good.
No, and sometimes those are the things, right, that just move you to begin to regain, like, okay, I'm confident in myself. I can do this. I just need, this doesn't feel right. Yeah. Now that you guys are here, let me ask you this. Eduardo, in terms of your educational journey now that you've been at EPCC, tell me what you feel, or describe for me what success is. I'm talking student success. What it makes a student successful. How do you define success? Mine isn't very linear. My definition isn't very linear. I'm all about improvement. If you've made a significant improvement from an F to a D, that's success for me. So I don't have, mine is very gray, my definition, but I'm curious to see what both of you would say in terms of what is success for you in terms of you being a student. What makes it work for you? What are some things you think about? How do you process this?
Well, I mean, success is different for everybody. You know, for me in particular, getting 70s, 80s, that's not success. You know, and in some of my classes are like, oh man, I got an 80, like I'm okay. I'm like, no, to me, that's not successful, you know? To me, getting 90s and up, that is success. So I push myself to get the best grades that I can. Of course, sometimes, you know, I just took an exam this morning, got an 88. But, you know, I wasn't too happy about it, but it's a hard class. It's anatomy, you know. Once you take anatomy, that's like a big difference, especially in how everything is questioned. It's more of a make you think kind of question rather than a definition or what's this. So for me, success would be getting high grades and eventually accomplishing your goal. You know, like I used to not like school at all. When I was in high school, I did 5 years of high school. You're supposed to do 4. I did 5. So that's how bad it was for me in high school. I just went down a path of being lazy. That's like you said, you know, because I can do it. But it took the Army for me to realize that I needed that discipline. Because now I go home and, no, I don't go see my friends. I don't go out and party. I don't go out and drink. You know, I stay home. I do my homework. I study. I do everything that I'm supposed to do because I already lived that life. You know, in my 20s, I lived that life. So now this is my future that I need to get better. So that's all you need in life. For like a younger person would be like, just be disciplined. Like set your priorities straight. So that's what success would be from, like you said, even if you used to get, you know, C's and now you're getting B's, man, that's success because you're getting there.
Absolutely.
But don't be complacent. Don't stay in the B's.
Right.
Aim for the A's.
Yeah. Jazz, success, what is it for you here? What does success mean? What does it come to mean for you? How would you describe it, define it?
Right. I would say around the same as Eduardo said too, because I feel as though if we don't improve on ourselves, then we won't reach our potential, like our potential of a person. And success doesn't have to be something so big, but like how he said, as long as you get there and you accomplish your goals, it could be something so small, like changing a habit or changing something about you or going out and exercising or making sure that you're there in your classes on time. Success is so small, and I feel as though as long as you're making those little changes in your habits daily, then you're going to be there for greatness. At one point, you will reach your point. Because even if, what's the word? Or how can I describe it? If you set the bar really high, you won't get disappointed when you don't reach that. You're there, if that makes sense.
Yes.
However, you accept it really low, then you'll probably be lower or at that point. So it's okay to set that bar really high, even though people say like you're never gonna accomplish that. Like that's impossible. You will not get there at one point, but you'll be really high at that point.
Do you think your definition has changed as you've matured, as you've?
Oh yeah, for sure. When I was smaller, success I wasn't too sure because I was small. Like school wasn't about money. It wasn't about making sure I passed my classes so I don't have to redo them or pay them. It was more of just go to class and hang out with friends and have a good time. It wasn't really as much as a success or You know, I didn't really have any goals at that
It
point.
becomes a little bit individualized too
Yeah,
at some
it
point,
does.
right? I mean, you start thinking a little bit more about, the future. And I'm interested in terms of what Claudia has to say about this. I was thinking about the conversation that we had in our class some time back, and the conversation was about the American dream. And I asked the students, do they believe in it? First of all, do they believe in it? Maybe they don't. Do they buy into it? What is it? How does, and this is very individual and personal, how does your own personal educational trajectory fit into the American dream?
I mean, the definition of the American dream is different for everyone. It's not the white picket fence like it used to be. Now, I mean, it's different for everyone. For me, it's not so much the American dream. It's my dream. It's my dream to be successful, to be a good provider, and my career is going to get me there. So, because nurses, like it or not, they get good. They get paid well, and they're needed everywhere. Mm-hmm. And after the pandemic, that's what made me face like, hey, I need to get something that's expanding, something that pays well, it's expanding.
Always be there.
And it's always going to be there. So that's my dream. So that's going to help me reach the American dream, as people say.
Does the American dream exist, though, Eduardo? If somebody came up to you and asked you, is there an American dream? Would it be yes, no, or would it be a little bit more murky in terms of the answer?
Well, it would have to be, what is the American dream for that person? Like, what is your view on the American dream? And if they tell me, oh, like being this, and then like, oh, maybe no. But if they just say, oh, being successful, having a good job, being stable, and having a happy life, yeah, of course, that's available.
Mm-hmm. I asked that to you, Jazz, only because I think I'm just going to be the anarchist here and say, I've never bought into the American dream, never bought into it. I didn't feel it existed in my own history, and I really don't even feel, despite the successes that I have, that it still exists now. And only because if it did exist, I always say, then more people would have gotten through. And achieved it, whatever it is. So it's always very, I think that I was in a class one time, at graduate seminar, and I think I was one out of maybe 15 that said, absolutely, it doesn't exist for me. And it's my own personal opinion in terms of what it is. But Miha, what is it for you? What is the American? Does your educational journey connect to that? Do you believe in it?
Right. I feel like for my parents, they do believe in the American dream because they want me to, I guess, be stable like on my own and have a family and be okay. But at the same time, I've met individuals who love their job, and it could be something so simple and they enjoy it and they have so much passion for it. Like I had a band director, I was in band, and he loves it. He loves teaching kids how to play an instrument and how to, and then he's like, no, I'm okay. He's like, I don't care how much it pays. He's like, I enjoy it. And he's really good at teaching it. And these kids love him because of it. And I feel like that for him, it's not your typical American dream. Like, oh, I'm going to get a really nice house. I'm going to start a family. I'm going to get a car. It was his, it's like how he said, it was his way of accomplishments. And I feel like that's okay. If you really enjoy your job, if you really have passion for it, then you should go ahead and do that. And that's all right.
Yeah. And I think too, just, we've mentioned, houses, money, whatever. Those remnants are still part of that dream, right? Or we wouldn't have mentioned them in here.
Exactly.
So they're connecting with that. But I think it's always very healthy to see that people make their own pathway too.
I find it interesting how they defined what we classify as traditional ideologies, a provider, have your own home and have children. And it's very interesting.
It is true, yeah.
Right? And I find it interesting because I hear it less. For me, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if to say sad or not, because at the end of the day, like both of them said, the definition of the American dream is left up to each individual, and happiness is up to each individual, right? It is, we are in charge of our own happiness, right? We are in charge of moving forward. And if that's what makes you happy and that's what fulfills your life, good, you achieved it. But if somehow you feel like, well, I'm lacking here, and that gives you goals, small goals, and long-term goals that we should keep an eye on. I mean, that's what allows us to carry on the next day. And for some people, it's like the next minute, the next hour, right? These little small goals and accomplishments. That's wonderful. It's wonderful that you guys have dreams. And to me, that encapsulates that American dream.
Eduardo, what does the future look like for you? We've mentioned nursing and so forth, but take me, to the next 10 years. You finish school.
Oh, yeah.
Get into nursing. What does it look like for you? And I'm hoping, I always tell, I've told all of you that I'm hoping that this isn't your final stop, that there's multiple degrees that are involved in this process. So what does the next 10 years look like?
So, the next 10 years, I'll be working, hopefully, with the VA, if not at Las Palmas, because I have some friends that already work there, or in Providence, So when it comes to that, that's probably where I see myself. Because to be a doctor, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to be a nurse and then be a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to spend 8 years in school, to become a doctor. I like what nurses do because they're more hands-on. So I see doctors like the lieutenants in the military. Yes, they get paid the big bucks, but it's the privates and the sergeants that do the work, and they know everything, not just from a book, but from experience. And that's what a nurse is.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to be. So I'm not going to push to be a lieutenant, a sir. I'd rather be the working ant, because that's where you get all your experience from.
And then last question for you, and then I'll talk to Jazz. What would a younger Eduardo, now that you're at this age, what would you advise a younger Eduardo to do, to say, to be, to identify with? What advice would you give him?
Go to school, man. Go to school. Don't slack it. Don't waste your time. I wasted a lot of time. And now I'm 31, barely going to school with 19-year-old kids.
It's never too late. Never.
It's never too late, but it's like I could have done this a long time ago.
But
So
again, you sometimes you're not quite ready, Eduardo, to jump in. You see it, but then it's not. The time's not right for you. Yeah. Jazz, what does the next 10 years look like, and what would you, Jasmine, right now, tell a younger Jasmine?
Hopefully the next 10 years I'm going to be a pharmacist, hopefully at Providence, because my mom works there, and they work really hand in hand as well when it comes to it. And I also need to pass a really big test called my PCATs in order to become a pharmacist, so I really need to work on that as well. And then hopefully go out, travel. I really want to travel a lot and see and experience people and new things, because I couldn't do that here in El Paso, and you get tired of El Paso. I think there's not a lot of things to do once you get used to the city, and hopefully settle somewhere else other than here as well. And I'm sorry, what was
I was going to ask you, what would you tell a younger Jasmine? What advice would you give her?
I would say yes, go to school. However, also not to always trust on other people or rely on others so much, because I wasn't very independent. I was very dependent on other people, and I couldn't really grow out of my shell because of that, until finally I realized, no, I have to do this on my own. And now I want to be independent. Now I don't even want to have kids. I kind of just want to go on my own and travel on my own.
Do your thing.
Do my own thing. I really want to accomplish that goal.
No. Awesome. Well, listen, I want to thank both of you from the bottom of my heart. Claudia, as well, as always being here by my side in terms of the conversation today. I learned from you all. It gives me a high in the classroom to be able to hear and listen to you. It makes me a better person. To understand, try to figure out the way in which you think, how you engage. So thank you for coming on today. Very, very grateful. Again, Eduardo Silva and Jasmine Marquez, thank you so much.
Thank you.
As always, thank you, EPCC Talks family, for helping us through yet another successful year. My co-host, Claudia Chacon, and appreciate the EPCC TV team. Thank you so much.